Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Sports Talks Podcast. Today we are covering redraft fantasy sports for the quarterback position only this year. It is important to note we are operating under the assumption that you're either in a 10 to 12 team league and that you only have one quarterback spot. If you have a super flex or you are in a two quarterback league, obviously things are going to drastically change in that scenario. Um, we'll just jump right off with the consensus debate. Who is the number one quarterback between Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes? Should see the consensus rankings, and only Eric Carabell from ESPN ranked Mahomes ahead of Jackson. I think that is very indicative of how good Jackson is. His running numbers are probably going to take a dip. Again, that's not a guarantee, but at the same time, he's still going to run the ball enough. He is the number one with Patrick Mahomes right behind him. One other thing to note, and hopefully I'll pop up some information right here to show you just how Stephania Bell's mock draft played out in a 12-person league. I want to take note of her running backs versus everyone else. She went with a very rookie running back heavy approach, but if we're starting two running backs like typical leagues and you're starting Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift against, some of the other players who, if you look at, I know it's the number one pick, but you look at Christian McCaffrey and who he is with, just comparing them side by side, it's really not even a contest. Overpaying for quarterbacks is a real thing. Neither of these guys is worth a first-round pick. I would honestly argue neither of them is even worth a second-round pick because that next tier of guys is who we're really interested in grabbing. Now, the next tier, I think, runs from Kyler Murray to Russell Wilson on consensus rankings, but I do not have them in that order. Dak Prescott is the clear number 3, as you heard me discuss in the initial rankings podcast. The Cowboys' offense is going to be much better than even last year and even in the years past where it's been very good. Dak Prescott consistently one of the top quarterbacks through that offense. Just added CeeDee Lamb. I want all of the Dak Prescott. I have him easily third. Right behind him is Kyler Murray. I think those guys are separating themselves from the other two. The addition of DeAndre Hopkins specifically, very big for Kyler Murray as well as in that Cliff Kingsbury offense. Very explosive. I expect big things from Kyler Murray in year 2. However, I'm weary that the overhype will buy him. I expect most of my drafts where Prescott will be able to go after Murray, and I'm perfectly fine with that. This is around the time, around round 5, round 6, where I will start paying that premium price for a quarterback because I have both my running backs. I have both my wide receivers by that point, typically. I have Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson next as a 5. And more or less it has to do with Deshaun Watson losing DeAndre Hopkins. If he still had DeAndre Hopkins, I think he can make the argument for number 5. But Russell Wilson with Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, as well as a really strong offense around him led by Chris Carson, quite honestly, Russell Wilson is the number 5 to me. And I think Deshaun Watson, you could even argue, is not in the same tier as those 3 guys above him. But Deshaun Watson definitely beats out our next one. If you look at these rankings, Josh Allen spreads from up at 7 to down at 11. He's much closer to that 7. It is that rushing floor week in, week out, the ability to rush near the goal line. I think Josh Allen is pretty much a lock to get you 6 rushing touchdowns on the season. That's huge from the quarterback position, much more so than the true passers, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady. Behind him, definitely Josh Allen. Give me Josh Allen. The addition of Stephon Diggs for the deep ball, him and John Brown, as well as Cole Beasley in the slot. The Bills are a very underrated team. If they want to take control of the AFC East, which they definitely should, Josh Allen's going to be a big reason why. And this is definitely the sweet spot for me. This is, Josh Allen, because you think I'm talking rounds 5 and 6 for the guys ahead of him, Dak Prescott, Kyler Murray specifically. You're probably getting Josh Allen in, 8, maybe even 9, depending on how far he falls. And that is definitely the sweet spot. The rest of your team is going to make up for that difference. That allows you, not only do you have your 2 running backs, wide receivers that you want to start, you also have a couple flex options. You probably even nab a premium tight end. Think you could then spend on Travis Kelce in the 2nd or 3rd round, George Kittle, those guys. I think Josh Allen is kind of the sweet spot here. Let's say Josh Allen is gone. This is where I really start to disagree. What's happening? Matt Ryan has way too many weapons. He and Tom Brady, they both have vast weapons. And despite that, I'd still put them in the same tier as Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, you'll see, is all the way down at 12. Daniel Jones should jump ahead of Carson Wentz and Drew Brees. This is coming from a Saints fan. Carson Wentz, I'm not even going to blame injuries for this. Look at the weapons around him. Look at the weapons around Daniel Jones, and they're not close. Carson Wentz has the advantage in pass-catching tight ends, and that's plural. Because if Evan Ingram is healthy, as a pure pass catcher, he is arguably as good as Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz might catch a couple more, but Evan Ingram is more explosive. And to me, that being a wash, the difference between Alshon Jeffrey, guys like Nelson Aguilar, who, if I'm not mistaken, is not even in Philadelphia anymore, but Jalen Reagor, that's who you're relying on, versus Darius Slayton, Sterling Shepard, and even Saquon Barkley. Have to remember that. Daniel Jones is in a better offense. I would have Daniel Jones. If I have the last quarterback pick in a 10 team, or even the last in a 12, if you're going where he's ranking, I want Daniel Jones. I want Daniel Jones. I'm buying into a bunch of Daniel Jones hype. Again, leap him at least over Carson Wentz and Drew Brees. If it wasn't for the name recognition of Tom Brady, he could be on that level. We don't know. I personally, it would come down to, I think Chris Godwin is just better than any weapon Daniel Jones has. But at the same time, I like Daniel Jones a lot. Like I said, 10th quarterback, easy. Carson Wentz, Drew Brees. Didn't speak about Drew Brees while we're jumping over Drew Brees. It's a run-first offense now in New Orleans. And despite the addition of Emmanuel Sanders, Drew Brees, he's going to be solid every week. Daniel Jones has the potential to win you games. Aaron Rodgers is ranked this high on name recognition only. Do not draft Aaron Rodgers in fantasy unless you're in a 2-quarterback league. That is setting yourself up for failure. Green Bay is not just a run-first offense. They're a run-first offense from an older Aaron Rodgers who does not have very many weapons. I'm not sitting here saying Aaron Rodgers is in decline or that he's going to fall off a cliff. Not saying that. I'm just saying there are better options, specifically Matthew Stafford in the same division, ranked at 15. I'm more in line with Clay's ranking of 12. Matt Stafford is on the fringe for me in a 2-quarterback league, in a 12-team league. And at the same time, I would definitely want Matthew Stafford as at least a backup if I needed a backup or a bye-week fill-in kind of thing, because Matthew Stafford has weapons, specifically Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones. They're going to have to get DeAndre Swift involved in the passing game as well. Matt Stafford, perennially underrated, used to be, amazing in fantasy, but give me a lot of Matt Stafford. And then, kind of dart throw quarterbacks. If you truly do wait to the end and people are getting lots of, quarterbacks and backup quarterbacks, Ryan Tannehill. You want a guy like Ryan Tannehill. You look at the guys ahead of him. Eric Carabell rated Joe Burrow the 12th best quarterback in fantasy. If he performs that well in his rookie season in what should probably be a run-first offense, I'll definitely eat my words on that. I think almost everyone ahead of him has more potential. I want to be kind of blunt here. That's where people were ranking Baker Mayfield last year. Even higher for Baker, but Baker Mayfield was huge up here. Now he's down at 17. Joe Burrow, he's a good starter, lots of potential. Unless you're in Dynasty, this isn't the year for it. Ryan Tannehill, lots of Ryan Tannehill. And even Jared Goff as a buy low bounce back candidate, especially if you're in 2-quarterback leagues. Those are guys you want to target late. Pure dart throws, guys. Pure, if they outperform their draft position, amazing. If not, you might be able to scoop these guys up off the waivers, after the draft is done. Looking at Gardner Minshew in Jacksonville, tons of weapons. Drafted, Chenault in the 2nd round. Look for Gardner Minshew to have a pretty good year. Drew Lock, another guy, they've surrounded him with weapons. There's really no excuse at this point for Drew Lock not to perform. Sam Darnold, another post-hype candidate. Those 3 guys are who I'm looking for. Teddy Bridgewater, it really depends on the weapons around him. He has really good weapons. Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, Christian McCaffrey, you can't understate that. He's going to get some one-on-one matchups thanks to Christian McCaffrey's prowess, and ranked, 26 consensus. Looks like his highest ranking is 23rd. He's not costing you a whole lot to get him. That's definitely a guy that I would want on my team in 2-quarterback leagues. And let's face it, he's better than Phillip Rivers. Kirk Cousins, depends on how you feel about Kirk Cousins. I'm ranking him ahead of Kirk Cousins. he's definitely better than Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's not a knock on Garoppolo. It's just the offense he's in. For fantasy purposes, give me all the Teddy Bridgewater before, the 3 guys ahead of him. That about wraps it up for our quarterback rankings. Again, don't reach on quarterbacks, guys. It's not worth it. Yes, you might get Lamar Jackson. You might get Lamar Jackson if you draft him in the first or second round, but the guys you're missing out on, you think about it, your running backs are going to end up looking, Jonathan Taylor and DeAndre Swift versus a guy who has Chris Carson and Christian McCaffrey. It's not going to end well for you in the long run. Those kinds of things are absolutely detrimental to your cause. Somebody's going to draft him. There's always a value point. If you draft him in the third, absolutely. That's where we're starting to look. Again, my sweet spot for quarterbacks is after that second tier, unless Dak Prescott specifically falls into like the 6th or 7th round. All right, guys, that does it for quarterbacks. Let me know what you want to see next. Probably go through each position first, but if you guys have specific questions, let me know. I'm also going to do a reveal of my dynasty teams. Got to keep in mind they've been around for a couple of years. Thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.